bear a strange fruit.
We just heard a portion of the song Strange Fruit by Billie Holiday, one of the most influential jazz musicians of all time. Holiday was born on April 7, 1915, in Philadelphia with the name Eleonora. Her father, Clarence Holiday, was a successful jazz artist, and he was absent for most of her childhood. At the young age of 10, Holiday's mother sent her to the House of Good Shepherd, a facility for troubled African American girls. After leaving the school around 1930, she began performing in local clubs. She adopted the stage name Billie Holiday, inspired by the 1920s actress Billy Dove. When Billie Holiday was 18 years old, producer John Hammond discovered her at a jazz club in Harlem. It was at this point where her career as a jazz artist was set in motion. According to USA Today, Billie Holiday sang at least 350 different songs. In 1936, she began collaborating with Lester Young, a tenor saxophone player who complemented Billie's voice nicely. The two became best friends and well-known musical partners. Lester famously nicknamed Billie Lady Day, and she would call him the Prez. As a black bisexual woman during the civil rights period, Holiday struggled with discrimination in many forms. However, according to NPR, she performed songs addressing racism, such as Strange Fruit, the song we heard earlier. This song addressed the topic of lynching. Another struggle of Billie's was addiction. After her mother died in the 1940s, Holiday developed a heroin addiction, which caused her to get arrested multiple times, according to PBS. Likewise, alcoholism affected her singing voice. Even today, Billie Holiday still impacts the Black Lives Matter movement. Modern singer-songwriter Andra Day covered Strange Fruit in 2017. Day told the Rolling Stone magazine, quote, "Billie Holiday symbolizes freedom. She symbolizes equality. She represents not just civil rights, not just the black community, but the LGBTQ community. She represents almost every marginalized group of people." End quote. Through her music, Billie Holiday spoke for minority groups and continues to leave a lasting impact on the history of jazz and pop vocals.
And bitter
Louis Armstrong is known as the leading trumpeter and a highly influential jazz artist. You've likely heard his most popular songs, which are What a Wonderful World,
What a wonderful world.
Hey Dolly, his cover of La Vie en Rose. This segment of the podcast is a review of his life and achievements. Armstrong was born on the 4th of August 1901 in New Orleans, Louisiana. Though he claimed he was born in the year 1900, many documents show that he was born in 1901. His nickname was South. This name came from how his cheeks looked when he played the trumpet. If you've seen his iconic pictures, you'll notice his cheeks greatly inflate. In 1913, he was put into the colored wife's home for 18 months, which is about 1.5 years, at the age of 9 for being a quote-unquote dangerous and suspicious character. In this home, he joined the band and played the cornet, which sparked his musical passion. In 1918, he married Daisy Parker, but soon fell out of the relationship. While he was with her, he adopted a 3-year-old boy named Clarence. Clarence was mentally disabled due to a head injury at an early age, and he was under Armstrong's care until Armstrong passed. He was asked to play second cornet in King Oliver's Creole Jazz Band in 1922. He recorded his first solos and pieces with this band, as in the songs Chimes Blues and Tears. He married the group's pianist, Lillian, who was better known as Lil Hardin, in 1924. She then convinced Armstrong to leave the group to properly pursue a solo career. He began playing the trumpet in 1926, He and Hardin separated in 1931. He became a known influence for swing and jazz beginning in 1929, as virtually all trumpeters and even a handful of trombonists and saxophonists modeled their styles from his. Additionally, his voice supplied influence for singers too, such as Bing Crosby. He was also known for being an entertainer and appeared in films such as New Orleans, which was released in 1947, and Hello, Dolly, which was released in 1969. In April of 1964, he received a Grammy for Hey Dolly as the Record of the Year. In 1990, around 20 years after he passed, he was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Armstrong was one of the greatest influences for jazz in history. He exceeded in his defined styles in trumpeting and singing, which created a model for other artists expanding his style of music. He passed in 1971.
Bessie Coleman was both the first African American and Native American woman to pilot through the skies. With her determination, she would encourage and inspire African Americans and women to reach their dreams, even after her tragic plane crash. Born on January 26, 1892, Bessie was raised with 12 siblings in Waxahachie, Texas. Her mother worked as a maid and her father a sharecropper. Her family was faced with challenges for their race, and her father even moved to an Indian territory in Oklahoma to escape the discrimination he faced. Bessie's mother chose to stay with the children. Growing up, Bessie helped her mother pick cotton and do laundry to earn extra money. When she was 18, she had saved enough to afford to go to the Colored Agricultural and Normal University. Unfortunately, she was only able to pay for a single semester. When her brothers, who had been in a war in France, returned, one told Coleman of how women in France could learn to fly planes. This sparked her dream to become a pilot, but she was faced with many challenges. None of the U.S. flight schools would accept her because of her gender and race. But when a local newspaper, the Chicago Defender, started to sponsor her, they advised her to instead apply to the schools all the way in France. So, Bessie went and took French classes at night to write her application. Her hard work paid off, and she was accepted into the Caudron Brothers School of Aviation in France. There, Coleman learned stunt flying and parachuting. On June 15, 1921, she got her piloting license and achieved becoming the first African-American woman and woman of Native American descent to become a pilot. From then on, she started to give speeches and showed films of her air tricks to earn money. She became popular for flying loop-the-loops in the shape of an 8. She was given nicknames such as Brave Bessie, Queen Bess, and the only race aviatrix in the world. In 1923, she got into a plane crash after her engine stopped working. She was injured, but alive, and after 2 years, she got back to piloting. Coleman was a courageous woman who stood proudly for the rights of African Americans and women. She would refuse to fly in shows that had segregations, only gave speeches in places that did not support discrimination, opened a beauty school in Florida with the goal of one day creating a flying school for African Americans, and even refused a movie role because it had her depicted in rags. When she returned to her hometown to do a show, she would not fly in the show until the managers got rid of the 2 segregated entrances and changed it to one for everyone. After performing in many of these shows, Coleman could finally buy her own plane after dreaming of doing so for a while. But tragedy struck. On April 30th, 1926, she was test driving it, a pilot in the front and her in the passenger seat. While they were high above the ground, a loose wrench got caught in the engine and the plane flipped upside down. Planes then did not have roofs, nor was Coleman wearing a seatbelt. She fell out, and the other pilot crashed later. She was only 34 years old. But her legacy would not be forgotten. Coleman Aero Club was opened in 1929 after Coleman's dream of opening a flying school for African Americans. In 1977, other African American women pilots formed the Bessie Coleman Aviators Club. The Bessie Coleman stamp was created and used in 1992. Bessie Coleman had the courage and determination to make her dreams reality. She has and will continue to inspire others.